How you doing? This is Sean McVeigh with Sean's Outdoor Adventures, and in this video I'm going to do a review on the Fletcher Outsider Release. I'm going to go over it with you, give you some of my observations. And the reason I'm uploading this now, it's something I've been wanting to do, but I just started uploading my series on compound bow reviews this year, and I've only got the first two up out of a bunch. And a lot of people have been asking me about this release because this is the release I used in those videos. So just to answer all those questions, I'm going to review it now. And this is a thumb activated release, and so the trigger is on this side. Here is the hook. This is just a dummy. There is no disengaging with what would normally be the finger trigger section. So the reason why I haven't put this on yet is because I wanted to go over something right off the bat. It is a buckle style strap, which is what I prefer as opposed to a Velcro strap, because Velcro you can get an inconsistent placement every time, whereas with a buckle, if you're using the same hole in the buckle strap, you're going to have it set up basically the same distance every time. So I'll get to that in a second. Right here I'm having trouble getting this on, and the reason is because of where the buckle ends and where the strap ends. What they should have done is have the buckle extend past the end of the strap, but because the strap extends past the buckle when you go to feed it through, this grabs on that and it doesn't feed through. So what you actually have to do is push that down, this leather piece down with the other finger, just to pull it through. So it's a little bit of an awkward feed through. I would redesign that so that the buckle hangs over and it doesn't hang up when you're trying to get on, because you're doing it one-handed when you're putting on a release. As far as the strap system here, I haven't had any slippage with it yet as far as the way that it feeds through. The reason why I point that out is I've used the True Ball Fang series, also the Short and Sweet, and all of the True Ball releases I've ever used with this type of setting in the last several years, like 4 years, the strap slides through there, and it's just a poor design. I've mentioned it to them, I've mentioned it on videos, but I didn't like that, so I'd have to come up with all kinds of modifications to keep it from sliding, but so far this has not slid at all, so that's a good thing. As far as this part here, I believe they put it on there for balance. I guess maybe people are used to having their finger. However, when you're drawing with a release, you never draw with your finger in front of the trigger. I always put it behind the trigger pushing forward. So in this case, since it's my thumb, I put my thumb underneath of the trigger that disengages. Here's the trigger. So I draw with my thumb under there so it can't disengage. But anyway, if you're ever drawing with a finger trigger, you should have your finger behind pushing forward, and then only bring the finger around after you're at full draw and anchored in. And that was really one of the main reasons why I wanted to try this release, is because sometimes I feel like I really am reaching for the trigger, and that can cause some issues with accuracy. And so I prefer a thumb style activated release. Here's a Spot Hug. This is actually my favorite one that I have. I really like, I'm just going to throw this in, I really like the Spot Hog. You'll see that I've tethered the Spot Hog with an old wrist strap release that I had laying around. I have such bad arthritis in my hands that I can't just shoot with one of these releases, because within a couple hundred shots my hands start to just cramp up and hurt so bad, because my arthritis is that bad that I just can't shoot anymore. And so I tethered it to a wrist strap to take some of the pressure off my fingers. But before I did that, I wanted to try this, because when you have a wrist strap style release, all the pressure is on that wrist strap and around your wrist. So you're not, constantly doing this with your fingers, or gripping this gripping motion with your fingers. So for those of us who have a real issue with arthritis, you don't have that. But I like the thumb activated release. I think one of the things in the marketing with this release is, with target panic and trigger finger, like that type of stuff, disengaging with your thumb is, some people say, helps with that. And if you go like this with your finger, you can like be more spasmodic with your finger than with your thumb. And so for those people, it could be something that would help. But let me get into a few things about this release that I would change. First of all, I've even considered cutting that off because that can just get hung up on stuff in the woods or whatever. And when I use it, I'm just going to hook it on the string. I'm not going to pull back because you don't want to pull back a bow without an arrow on there pointed at a target. But I always have my finger behind that. If you watch any of the compound bow review videos I did using this release, my finger's back here. I think they said they put it on there for balance, but think about this, guys and girls. If I ever decide to not use this release and just go back to a finger, if I get so used to pulling with my finger on here, I'm going to have major issues when I go back to that fingerstyle retreat or the fingerstyle release, because things in archery become habitual. You stop thinking about them, which in a lot of cases is good because you want to focus on other things to help your accuracy. So if you stop thinking about where this finger is and then you switch to back to a fingerstyle release, you're going to probably have some issues with that at first. So no matter what, I never touch that thing. Like I said, I've considered cutting it off. One thing, I was about to grab an arrow, but the actual hook on here is a bit bulky, and so it's a little bit awkward in hooking it on compared to pretty much all the other releases I've used in recent years. So I'm just going to hook it on. My thumb is behind the trigger, but I want to talk about a couple things. When you get this release, if you get it, it has a pretty heavy trigger out of the package. So you actually have to push pretty hard to get it to disengage. Now, you can leave it set that way and use it with the same concept of a back tension in that, now with a back tension release, it's when that release pivots so far it finally disengages, and one of the purposes of that is to try to help people overcome target panic without, like shaking at the last minute, because you don't actually know the exact moment the release is going to go off, and so it kind of forces you to just hang in there with the shot until it finally goes off. With that in mind, when this trigger is set really heavily, you just gently begin to add pressure to it, and you keep increasing it until finally it disengages. So if you take that approach, when you're at full draw, you're focused on aiming, you're putting more pressure, and then it finally goes, but you don't know the exact moment it's going to go. So my point is, you can use it that way. I kind of don't. But here is one of the big drawbacks of this release. So I'll pull back, I got a target right over here. I used to anchor with my hand like this against my face. Right now, where the release is, when I anchor the way I used to, I can't get to the thumb trigger. Like my thumb's down here, the trigger's against my cheek. I can't get my thumb up in there, to also see through my peep. This forced me to have to radically change my anchor point. My anchor point has to be below my jaw line, which puts it way down here. So it's a little bit awkward to get used to, shooting so many years with my hand anchored like this, with like my thumb in here and this, that, and the other thing. Now you're changing everything. It has to be below here. The only thing that I could say would have helped with that, if they would have incorporated a concept like this, where you have this big barrel coming off the bottom of the tab. So you see this tab, this kind of a brass tab right here. Well, if you imagine this hook that your thumb is disengaging as that brass tab, and if they had an option where you could bolt something like that, now, whereas the brass tab is up by your cheek, this can hang down far enough that you can get to it with your thumb and not have to change your anchor point so much. And it's not a situation where you can just pivot the whole thing and have that thumb trigger pointing downward, so you can still anchor up here but your thumb's disengaging here, because the way this is designed, unless they created some kind of a barrel pivot in there, you wouldn't be able to do that. So bottom line is, I would do some modifications to it if I was a manufacturer. It's functional, you can use it, and does it help? I don't have a problem with target panic, so I can't verify if it's going to really help you with that. But see how my thumb's dug in under there for drawing back? I just want to point that out. When I'm drawing back, my thumb is dug in under there because I don't want to have a misfire. I'll just take one shot. So I kind of am coming in here now. The fletching is below my chin. What a lot of people do with a wrist style strap is they have that fletch in that zone between their chin and their lower lip right in here, so there's no fletch contact on your face. In doing it this way, I get it below my chin, which is good, but I kind of have to tilt my head a little bit to anchor, and that's a shot. So overall, it's an okay release. I would do some modifications to it if it was me. There's probably people out there that like it, probably people that hate it. But you know, if you haven't tried a thumb style release, I kind of like them. I especially like these because, let me grab this. I just threw my other release on here, my thumb activated release, just to give you an example. Now, normally this isn't all tethered up like this. You normally just grab the handheld. But one of the things I really like about the thumb activated release, like here, is where your knuckles are. You can just anchor that in right along your jawline. It's nice and solid. You can't quite do that with the Fletcher Outsider Release because your hand isn't at this angle, and you can see the thumb that disengages the trigger is pointed down. Again, the trigger for the Fletcher Outsider Release is pointed toward your face. So I would even maybe personally redesign the whole release a little bit so that you know, it's like at a 45-degree angle rather than just like a flat out. Have the, you know, the thumb activator pointed down and then the release hooking on that way. It would just make things, you could anchor in, you know, with these solid waves like you would with this. And the reason why I don't have a fletch on here is because when I do my compound bow reviews, there's a lot of shops that have whisker biscuits, and I don't want to have my speed readings thrown off with fletches, so I just, you know, that's the point of that. But anyway, this is one of the things I really like about a handheld release, you know, having the solid anchoring like that. Alright, so that's the Fletcher Outsider Release. All in all, you know, I would give it an 8 out of 10 rating. I would definitely make some modifications to make it better. You know, as far as this is designed, I would try to create an option where, you know, maybe if you wanted to, you could pivot the head from between the release where the thumb trigger is and where the hook is, so that when you're at full draw, rather than have that trigger pointing toward your cheek, I would point it 45-degree angle down so your thumb can come into it this way, and then that would enable you to anchor up here if you wanted, or wherever you wanted, rather than have to come below the jawline just to be able to, you know, get access to the trigger. That would be probably my biggest recommendation to them. But anyway, if you want to try it out, go for it. Thanks for tuning in. I hope this helped. God bless. Also, if you are interested in checking out my compound bow reviews that I mentioned, I'll put some links to that in the description section of this video. Take care. God bless.